Many people are burying eggshells in their gardens. They believe this method can replace fertilizers and pesticides, but when they apply it, they see almost no results. Plants are still weak, leaves are still yellow, pests and diseases still appear. There is no clear change. This is exactly why this method is questioned. But the problem is not the eggshells. The problem is how you are using them. This method can actually be more effective than fertilizers and pesticides, but only if you understand how it really works. Right now, most people just bury eggshells in the soil and wait for results, but plants cannot use the nutrients inside. The nutrients are there, but they are locked. This is why this method is not popular, not because it doesn't work, but because almost no one understands how to use it correctly. My name is William. I am 70 years old this year. I have spent many years studying how to naturally nourish plants without relying on fertilizers or pesticides. Eggshells may seem like waste, but they contain about 95% calcium carbonate. In addition, they also have many trace minerals essential for plants. However, there is one important point that most people do not realize. This form of calcium does not dissolve in water. That means plants cannot absorb it directly. In other words, you are providing nutrients, but in a form that plants cannot use. The nutrients exist, but they are locked. Calcium is a very important element. It helps form cell walls, makes plants stronger, healthier, and more resistant to pests and diseases. When lacking calcium, plants become weak. Their tissues are soft, easily damaged. You can see this through leaf burn at the edges, early flower drop, and fruit rot. This was once recorded in an agricultural experiment in 1932 in Europe. Among hundreds of plots, there was one area with outstanding yield, almost no pests or diseases. Analysis showed that the soil in that area contained a large amount of accumulated eggshells over a long period. But the key factor was not just the eggshells. It was how the calcium inside was converted into a form that plants could absorb. In the past, natural soil had a very rich microbial system. These microorganisms continuously broke down minerals, converting them into forms that plants could absorb. Calcium in the soil was not locked. It was released slowly, but steadily. As a result, plants developed in balance, with strong structure and fewer pests and diseases. But in modern gardening systems, everything has changed. Chemical fertilizers are used to speed up growth. Plants grow faster, but their cell structure becomes weaker. The soil gradually loses its important microbial system. When soil loses microorganisms, the ability to convert nutrients drops sharply. Even if you add minerals, plants still cannot absorb them effectively. When plants are weak, pests and diseases begin to appear more frequently. The common solution is pesticides, but this only makes the situation worse. Pesticides do not just kill pests, they also disrupt the soil ecosystem, causing the soil to become more and more depleted. The result is a cycle. Weak plants need fertilizers, pests appear, need pesticides, and over time, the soil completely loses its ability to regenerate. The core issue is not whether you use eggshells or not. It is what form the calcium inside exists in. The calcium in eggshells is calcium carbonate. This is a very stable form. It does not dissolve in water. Meanwhile, plant roots can only absorb nutrients in dissolved ionic form. This creates a very large gap. You have nutrients, but the plant cannot use them. You are feeding the plant, but the food is locked away. When you bury eggshells in the soil, in theory, you are adding calcium. But in reality, plants receive almost nothing in the short term. In nature, this process can work. Microorganisms in the soil release organic acids, gradually breaking down the structure of calcium carbonate and converting it into a soluble form. But this process is very slow. It usually takes from 2 to 3 years. During that time, plants continue to lack calcium. The problem becomes more serious in modern conditions. The soil has lost most of its microbial system due to long-term use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. Without enough microorganisms, the decomposition process nearly stops. The eggshells remain in the soil, but they are not converted. This is why many people apply this method but see no results. They perform the right action, but lack the conditions for it to work. You can bury eggshells for many months, even many years, But without the conversion process, plants still lack calcium. This is the point that most people do not understand. They see the material, but do not understand the mechanism. They think adding it is enough, but in reality, the form of the nutrient is the deciding factor. This is also why this method is not popular, not because it does not work, but because the most important part, the calcium conversion process, is almost never mentioned. And without this conversion, eggshells are just a locked source of nutrients, bringing no real value in the short term. Once you understand this, you will realize a very clear truth. It is not that you lack nutrients. It is that your plants cannot access those nutrients. And this is exactly why this method is considered ineffective, while in reality, it has never been used correctly. The method of burying eggshells can actually be effective, but not in the way most people are doing it. Most people simply bury raw eggshells in the soil and wait. But as you now know, the calcium inside does not dissolve. Plants cannot absorb it. So if you stop at burying, this method has almost no effect in the short term. To make the eggshell method truly effective, you must change one key step. You need to convert the calcium in the eggshells into a soluble form before adding it to the soil. The method is very simple. First, clean and dry the eggshells, then crush them to increase surface area. Next, put the eggshells into a glass jar and add vinegar. As soon as the vinegar contacts the eggshells, you will see bubbles appear. This is a sign that a reaction is happening. During this process, the calcium carbonate structure is broken down and converted into a new form of calcium. This form can fully dissolve in water. This is the most important difference in the eggshell method when done correctly. Instead of burying directly, you are preparing nutrients in a form that plants can absorb immediately. After a few days, when the reaction is complete, you will obtain a solution containing dissolved calcium. This solution can be diluted with water and applied directly to the base of the plant or sprayed onto the leaves. At that point, calcium is absorbed quickly, entering directly into the process of building cell walls. The results will be much more noticeable compared to burying raw eggshells. Plants will be stronger, leaves thicker, and resistance to pests and diseases will increase. This is why the eggshell method can be more effective than fertilizers and pesticides in many cases. Not because eggshells are special, but because you are providing the exact form of nutrients that plants need. Just one small change in the method, but it creates a very big difference in results. This is the part that most people overlook, and also the reason why this method is not popular, not because it is ineffective, but because very few people truly understand how to use it correctly. Once you have converted eggshells into a soluble form, the way it works inside the plant changes completely. In the normal state, calcium is locked, plant roots cannot absorb it. But once dissolved, calcium exists in ionic form. And this is exactly the form that plants can use immediately. When you apply this solution to the soil, the roots begin absorbing almost instantly. No need to wait for a decomposition process that takes years. Calcium is then transported inside the plant and directly participates in building cell walls. This is the most important point. Cell walls act like a protective framework. When this framework is thick and strong, the entire structure of the plant becomes stable. Leaves are no longer soft and easily torn. Stems are no longer weak and easily broken. Plant tissues become firmer. This creates a very large change. Pests and diseases can no longer attack easily. Most harmful insects can only suck sap or chew soft tissues. When the cell walls are strong enough, they can hardly cause damage. Not because you repel them, but because the plant is no longer an easy target. This is a natural defense mechanism that many people overlook. In addition, calcium also helps stabilize nutrient transport inside the plant, helping other minerals distribute more evenly. When this system works well, plants grow in balance, no longer growing fast but weak. Another important point is foliar absorption. When you spray the solution onto leaf surfaces, calcium can enter through the stomata and be absorbed directly. This helps shorten response time and supports the plant even when the root system is weak. The combination of root and foliar absorption creates a very fast effect. After a short time, you can see the difference. Leaves become thicker, the green color becomes deeper, plants stand stronger. This is not an instant effect like chemical fertilizers, but an improvement from within. And that is why this method is more sustainable. You are not forcing the plant to grow fast. You are helping the plant become stronger from its internal structure. When the structure is strong enough, the plant can resist most problems on its own, without relying on pesticides. When applied correctly, the change does not happen suddenly, but it is very clear. At first, you will see leaves becoming thicker. The green color becomes deeper and more stable. The widespread yellowing seen before no longer occurs. Then, the rate of damage from pests and diseases decreases significantly. Not because you eliminate them, but because the plant is no longer an easy target. Small insects, which usually attack soft tissues, will gradually disappear. They cannot penetrate the reinforced cell layers. You will also notice another important change. That is stability. Plants no longer grow quickly and then weaken. Instead, they grow more slowly, but more solidly. Flowers no longer drop early. Fruits are less likely to rot at the bottom. Problems you once thought were diseases gradually decrease. The soil also begins to change. When you no longer rely on chemical fertilizers and pesticides, the soil microbiome has a chance to recover. The soil becomes looser, retains moisture better, and has the smell of living earth, no longer dry and depleted. This is an effect that chemical fertilizers cannot provide. You are not only improving the plants, you are restoring the entire system. Another important point is sustainability. You do not need to constantly buy more products. No need to increase dosage over time. The system sustains itself once properly established. This is the biggest difference. This method does not create fast and strong results like chemicals, but it creates stable and long-term results. And that is why, when used correctly, it can replace most fertilizers and pesticides in a healthy garden. Look at the difference. On one side, you bury raw eggshells in the soil. You have nutrients, but they are locked. The plant cannot use them, and you have to wait for years. On the other side, you convert eggshells into a soluble form before using them. Nutrients are ready. The plant absorbs them immediately. Results appear in a short time. This is not a small difference. This is two completely different approaches. In the first approach, you depend on time and microorganisms. If the soil is weak, the process almost does not happen. In the second approach, you actively create the form of nutrients that the plant needs. No waiting, no dependence on soil conditions. This also explains why many people believe the eggshell method does not work. They are using the right material. But in the first way, the way where nutrients are never used, meanwhile, just changing the processing method, the results are completely different. This is the difference between having nutrients and plants being able to use nutrients. It is not that you lack calcium. It is that your plants cannot access calcium, and when you change that, the entire system begins to change. This is not a new method. It is simply a way of understanding again what nature has always done. In nature, nothing is wasted, everything is transformed, and becomes nutrients for the next life. Eggshells are the same. They are not waste. They are a source of minerals, but only when converted into the right form. When you understand this, you no longer depend entirely on fertilizers or pesticides. You begin to work with nature instead of against it. And that is the first step to building a truly sustainable garden. This method does not fail. People misunderstand how it works. You do not lack solutions. You only lack the right approach. For many years, we have been taught that plants need fertilizers. When pests appear, pesticides are needed. Every problem has a product to solve it. But in reality, those are only short-term solutions. They do not solve the root cause. Plants are not weak because they lack chemicals. Plants are weak because their internal structure is not strong enough. When you change that, you no longer have to chase problems. Problems disappear on their own. This is not the fastest way, but it is the right way. You do not need extra cost. No need to depend on the market. You only need to understand how to convert nutrients into the form that plants can use. And when you do that, your garden will change in a way that you can see every day. If you find this content useful, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment if you have any questions. This video uses AI-assisted tools to help present visual information more clearly and understandably for viewers.